You are working in the dimensions and different realms.
I was surrounded by angels like everywhere, and Jesus showed up. It was such an incredible experience that, the details were just like shocking.
There are extraterrestrials out there.
So do you think that governments know about this and that they're keeping this from people?
Spiritually, they know. Spiritually, they know basically everything that we thought they did not know. There are two types, the good and the bad.
Mm-hmm. I screamed out, I need help, and I was calling for God.
So they're fighting for your soul fragment. They want this piece of the soul.
Welcome back to the Tim Teaches podcast. Today I have the pleasure of being joined by Master Shaman Palichee. Master Shaman Palichee is a spiritual guide healer who specializes in quantum energy healing, shamanic ritual, and holistic therapies. For those of you watching, if you find this topic valuable, please leave a comment. Master Palichee, welcome to the Tim Teaches podcast. I appreciate you joining me today.
Yes, warmest blessings. Glad to be on.
Shamanism is something I'm pretty new to. I've experienced a little bit of working with some shamans. If you would if nobody's ever heard of shamanism, can you kind of give a little bit of an example of what that is?
Yes, I'll try my best to just kind of explain from my point of view, my aspect. A shaman is typically someone that is a mediator between that can talk or travel spiritually to different spiritual realms or worlds, as they call it, and or work with spirit and energy in different dimensions, whether it's here on earth or in different dimensions. So that's typically what a shaman is. Mm-hmm. Now there's so various different types of shamans, and we can go into different details on that, but that's literally what it is. You're a medium that works with spirit or energy, anything in the supernatural, and you are working in the dimensions and different realms.
Perfect. All right. That explains it perfectly for somebody like me who's really not familiar with it. So I was listening to some of your different videos, and you explain a lot in detail about becoming a shaman. How were you called to become a shaman?
I knew that question was coming up. The calling happened a long time ago at an age about 2. An experience, a phenomenon happened in my life. In that time frame, I met actually an angel in my room. Some people are going to be like, sure you did, right?
Not me.
But in my experience, it was a huge angel, an apparition, basically. I was in a half awake, half asleep state. I can hear my parents in the kitchen living room talking in the early morning. And I could see the bedroom slightly with my eyes slightly open. I could see the light coming into the window, through the window, but it's still dark in the ceiling. The apparition appeared in the corner of the ceiling of my bedroom. And she said some words. I thought it was English at the time. I didn't speak English at the time, but I thought it was like a very English. But when I come back to, let's say, when I was about 28 years old, and I know that my spirit guides basically came to me, I started to be guided by them. Then I realized that the language spoken to me back then when I was 2 was not English. So anyways, it started off with this phenomenon that happened.
Is it more of a transmission and you just understand what they're saying?
It's more of a transmission. It's more of a telepathic.
Yeah.
Because her lips was not moving.
Yeah.
Now, I noticed at the time, and it was more telepathic. And then she was just floating in my room with her dress and whatever else that was floating from her outfit. But she said some things and then she left. And then she kind of, went into the corner of the room, of the ceiling, and just disappeared after that. And I did see, just looking up at the night sky, stars around her. And then that whole picture around her just kind of went right into the corner of so anyways, after that phenomenon was very interesting times after that. Lots of psychic abilities came out, but then my parents just thought it was a normal thing because they come from a background of shamanism. So they just thought, okay, this child has some gifts and we know how to work with it. So let's see what comes out. And they didn't force anything to come out, but they just knew that the gifts were there.
Wow. I mean, do you know how were they raised in in shamanism themselves too?
Yeah. So both sides of my parents do come from a different shamanic lineages.
Wow. Okay. I was watching one of your other YouTube videos and it was talking about false spirit guides. And there seems to be a lot of that going on nowadays. I feel like shamanism and spirituality is kind of starting to become all the rage. Not that that's a bad thing at all, because we need more spirituality in this world. But, you know, how do you differentiate between somebody who has your best interest?
Right. So if you mean a person, how to distinguish them, right? If they're good or bad, right?
Yeah.
Or good or evil. So typically you would have a feeling, right? Like an intuitive gut feeling when a person just looks at you or talks with you. Now it could be tricky. It's not always black and white. It can be gray. But when you talk to a person, for me, I typically listen to the tone of voice. I also watch their eyes. And so I just have a feel or a sense if they are lying or if they are telling the truth. Mm-hmm. And if I double think if they are good or bad, then I'm not sure, then I don't do anything. I don't make the move. I don't go forward, right? But if I feel, oh, this person is good, or this person is authentic enough, then I have this sense inside of me that just tells me they are. And usually everybody kind of has this inner sense or this inner gut feeling, but most people are not listening to this gut feeling and they are more biased about it. So you have to be unbiased in order to actually listen to your intuition. That's your gut feeling, right? Mm. So that's how I tell by body language. So it's kind of everything: body language, eyes, their tone of voice. And then what are they talking about, right? Do they know what they're talking about or are they making stuff up? Mm-hmm. And then you can definitely question, unless it's just a no talk and it's silent and this person is making a move or gestures and you're just having a feel. So for example, if you go to like a car salesman, right? Because typically car salesman is the easiest thing, right? Most of them are out for the money, right? So that's a bias, right? Because most salesmen are probably taught to hurry up and get your quota in or whatever, right? And so they are just kind of doing their script and trying to get through their day to get their work done or to get their quota in. Mm-hmm. So if you talk to a sales guy, if he's authentic, then he may not care to talk about what pushing you to buy something, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're listening to him and he's more authentic, then you know that he's not really out for the money. He's out for maybe your good. Maybe he's out to help you, to really help you find that piece of item that you're looking for, right? So literally you're looking at his eyes, you're listening to tone of voice, body language or gestures. And really what he's saying is to just really get it going. I just want you out of my hair. And if you want to buy it or not, I don't care. Just get the item. That
will get me to buy every time. So I'm putting it out there. Like if you try to sell me something, I'm out the second. Yeah. It's just that feeling. I don't like bullshit. I'm sorry for my language.
But at the same time, the person could be using reverse psychology on you, or they could be just authentically saying, you know, this is what I have. They're just sharing with you what they've got. Yeah. If you like it, just let me know. If you don't, then, you know, I'll be over here.
Yeah. No, that's a good way to go about it. So talking about, I was watching your other video. So now I got all these questions about that video and we haven't ever talked. So you were talking about like seeing angels and seeing Jesus or whatever spiritual higher being you connect with. And I talk about this quite a bit on my show, is doing ayahuasca. And I did it last December for the first time. My dad was a minister and raised in a Christian church and everything. But during my experience on the last night of 4 ceremonies, I had a death and a rebirth. And during that experience, I was surrounded by angels like everywhere. And Jesus showed up, and these angels were literally saying, like, praising our higher power, like, we saved him, we saved another soul. And I mean, it was the most profound, I'm getting chills just saying it. It was literally the most profound experience of my life. And I believe what I saw was real. And I know it was real, but to try to explain that to people, you know, you're risking getting thrown in. It's unfortunate, but there's no good way to explain it. But when you started talking about that, that really resonated with me. I'm like, okay, she gets it. Do you think what I'm seeing or saw was real?
Yes, what you saw is real. It was there. It's not you making it up in your mind or plainly forcing the imagination. If you were trying to force the imagination, you would know that it was your imagination, that you came up with this thought, right? Mm-hmm. But all of a sudden, if you're just blank-minded and these visions starts to come in and you have a feel for it, the sense is so real or realistic, then it happened.
Yeah,
right.
It was the most incredible thing I've ever experienced. And I haven't really talked about the actual experience because it's so indescribable and amazing.
And when you're talking right now, I actually see that there was an angel wearing a light blue color. I don't know if you saw the light blue. And there's one holding something with a red piece of cloth somewhere. So I don't know if you saw that.
Man, it was such an incredible experience that, I mean, the details were just like shocking, you know, like awe is all I can say. I know it was there. I know I saw it, and
it was almost like grouped up around, right?
Oh yeah. I was surrounded by these angels, and I was, you know, like literally I died right there and was born again. It was you know, people say, oh, he was born again. And literally, like, I felt like my life ended at that moment and that I was saved and reborn and to continue on this journey that I was on. And, you know, I've never shared the details of this experience with people because, you know, it's really personal, but, you know, and not everybody has those kinds of experiences. I understand that from talking to other people who have done it. Some people are like, yeah, I saw my dog, or, you know, and so I don't know why I have those different experiences than other people. But, you know, you also talked about, you know, psychic ability and, you know, the ability to, you know, you just kind of know things are going to happen or, you know, and I feel like I get that from my dad. And I wanted to share this with you real quick, and then I'll let you jump in. But like when I was a kid, you know, I was out randomly driving around with one of my friends who was not a good influence. And we lived in a small town, but, you know, we just randomly, I had to use the restroom, and we go to a park, and I go in to use the restroom, and I come out, and my dad pulls up in his car, and I'm like, hey, Dad, our intent, me and my friend, was to go smoke pot, and something we shouldn't have been doing. And my dad said he was at work. This is before cell phones, before anything like that. But the story has stuck with me forever. My dad said I was, you know, working, and all of a sudden I just said, I need to go pick up my son at the park I never go to. It was literally a random, like, I need to go here. And my dad is a very intuitive guy as a minister, you know, but he has this kind of psychic ability. It's weird. So I just wanted to share that because it was like, you know, I've always had things similar to that.
Okay, good. Yeah. And you will, because if it runs in one, it might run in the generations, right? Mm-hmm. So the only other thing is that will you exercise it?
So how do we exercise it?
Learn to tame it, learn to exercise it. Basically, be more conscious of that voice. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's literally an extra voice within your voice, right? Mm-hmm. And we often call it the voice within. And if we don't listen to it, it will go away. It will be basically shut down, or it will be quieted. And then there's your voice, the free will voice that comes out. And that's who you're listening to, as in your thinking voice, right? Mm-hmm. But that's why I often will say, meditate. If you meditate, then you can exercise your brain, the mind that is really the conscious mind that will then hear that inner voice. And if you choose to think logical, or you choose to force the thinking, then you won't listen, you won't hear that voice, that inner voice that's within.
I've been trying to figure out how to meditate. So I'm on this whole spiritual journey this last year of my life. Like, things have shifted big time for me, you know. So I try to meditate, and it's so hard. I've looked up how to meditate on YouTube or whatever. And it's like, do you have music? Are you just in a silent room? Are you just trying not to think of things and then let whatever is supposed to come to you?
So I teach meditation, and how I teach it is you just immerse yourself into it. Don't think too much about what are you supposed to be doing. I often get the jokes from the people that don't meditate, and they also say, well, don't you waste your time just sitting there and thinking about nothing? Or are you just sitting there and like in silence, or what are you doing? Like, you're just wasting your time.
Yeah.
I said, well, it won't be a waste of time if you are able to hear what the other side has to say. Mm-hmm. If you're being taught, if you're being guided, then you won't be wasting your time. It's an adventure, actually. It's as if you are in a dream and you're dreaming away and you're going on an adventure, similar to that. And so what I often say is, when you quiet down your mind, you are allowing yourself to just, some people say, listen to your breath. That has never worked for me. So I typically go in there and I didn't even know I was meditating at first, right? But I was guided. So I guess I didn't have to, but literally what happens is you close your eyes, go into the meditation. If it's hard for you to even do the meditation or sit quietly, because some people say that they have noise, right, that goes on in their head. Mm-hmm. Or let's say they keep having images from memories, right, that goes on in their head. Or what are you going to eat? What's for dinner tonight? You know, all this daily stuff goes on, and that's your daily normal mind, right, speaking to you. But if you want to get past that daily normal mind, then you must be willing to say, okay, forget all this. I'm just going to go into the center of my mind, right? The center of my mind, my core in my head. And let's look in there. And you're just literally looking there. That's one. The second area you could focus on is your third eye. So you could do third eye or center of your head. Either one. I have exercises to do that too. And you're literally closed eyes, just focusing in that dark center, right? And if your eyes are not, let's say if you close your eyes and you can still see light, it may not work for you. So you may actually have to put a blindfold on or some kind of cloth around their eye, or they have to be in the dark somewhere, right? But for some people, it's okay to have the light on their eyes. So it just depends on what your sensitivities are. And it has a lot to do with your traumas and memories. So memories, traumas come hand in hand when you are meditating. And if those of you that have a lot of trauma, it will be very hard for you to meditate and quiet your mind or be mindful, because you have anger, emotional states of mind. There's anger, there's sadness, there's maybe a lot of happiness, right? But most people are aiming towards, they start to go towards this sadness, anger, whatever stress that's causing them the negativity feelings. They always go towards that when they start to go meditate, because now they're closed eyes. They can now get into themselves and in their inner selves, and now it goes into the emotional part of them. So that emotional part is going to creep up on you through memories, and then it's going to be, mind is not quiet, right, at that point. So you go in there. If you need to quiet mind, you may have to use music, and for some, maybe a certain instrument. For you, I'm saying that it would be more of a harp instrument, that will help you. I don't know if you like harps, but
My mom plays the harp.
okay. Even like a lyre harp specifically, because it's very Nordic or Norse, and it feels like Norse energies is very close to you on the root part. So Nordic or Norse type, and the lyre harp seems to come in right now as I'm speaking, and to just listen and to just let yourself melt away in the music. And then you will start to find yourself immersing in that music, carrying you into a meditation. I call it pure thoughts. The pure thoughts is when you had that experience, when you had that experience with the angels. That was your pure thoughts that came. It broke through the pure thought, and then you were able to see what you saw. Some people can't break through to the pure thoughts, so they have to envision, affirm, and they still can't break through to the pure thoughts. So it just will depend on someone's memories and trauma and how emotional are they.
If that's the experience that I can get, then I'm going to have to work harder, because I would love to have that experience again.
And if it's hard for someone to meditate like yourself, then it could be releasing some trauma, some healing will help before you can even meditate in a more conscious manner. Otherwise, just immersing yourself, you may seem black. It's just like, I'm trying to see something, but I can't. It could happen like that too. So there's blockages. Those blockages can be very generational, goes back to the roots, and it can also be trauma. It can also be personal trauma. That is, it may also be something that perhaps that you went through and you never really got over, as in not a trauma, but maybe an experience.
I feel like for the most part, I'm pretty trauma free these days. You know, after my experience, I've actually been to Rhythmia. It's an ayahuasca retreat three different times, and they've knocked the trauma and PTSD out of me, you know, through plant medicine. And that was, I think, what it took for me, you know, because I wouldn't have been able to do it just on my own. You know, I needed something to intervene and be able to process that stuff. And that's what worked for me. Yeah, it's incredible stuff. Do you ever work with any plant medicines?
I don't need to.
Yeah. You were already born with this stuff.
So when, let's say, to get somebody into that kind of consciousness, when somebody does like ayahuasca or the psychedelic stuff like that, that's a force. I look at it as a forceful, bringing the person to a forceful state of mind, state of consciousness. So you're forcing that state of consciousness. You're forcing the subconscious, how do you call it? Like for you to go into this higher state of mind, right? It's forcing that. But what I believe in and what I was taught spiritually is, doesn't need to be forced. If you can get the person to naturally just believe in themselves, believe in this, and then they can go there, travel there, and also be with the spirits, be guided through unforced herbs, right? Unforced energy. And so therefore you can get there through the invigoration and the opening of the Kundalini, the opening of the chi energy centers within the person. If that is truly open, then you will gain that experience naturally without psychedelics.
Yeah, I would have loved to be able to do that. I just didn't have the time or anybody to guide me, you know, and be able to show me that way, you know. And so for me, it definitely helped with my trauma and stuff like that. But I would love to, in my general practice, be able to not have to do those types of things, you know, and just actually work with spirit and, you know, your higher power.
Yes. And if you're not able to go into the meditations, that means it was a temporary go there and fix something and then come back. It wasn't like a go there and then can go there and can continually fix this thing or heal this trauma, right? So that means that to me, as a shamanic master, I would say that the trauma feels like it's healed, but it's actually still there's still a blockage if you aren't able to meditate. And if, let's say, when you meditate, you see black, it's just pure black, or there's noise still in your head, that means that this experience, this memory is still there. Believe it or not, some people come to me, oh, Master Palichee, I've done all the trauma healings that you know, it's out there. I've done that. I've done the healings. I've done it myself. And then I've done it with practitioners. And I said, this trauma, and I'll kind of name the trauma, either in this lifetime or in past lifetimes, this is what's happened. And that's why you are this way today, because of this like third lifetime ago or fifth lifetime ago. And that's why this has happened. And this is why your life is like this today. Though you have helped some traumas in this lifetime, there is this other lifetime that you've had this type of trauma. And that's why the conscious mind is still blocked. There's a percentage. So it's not fully blocked for some. Maybe it's open 30%, 50%, 60%. And you can still kind of feel that as a person, but then you're not fully able to feel comfortable doing that still. And there's still blockages there. So until there is a deep invigoration within the person or initiation for the person, then they will always be blocked until then, unless spirit comes and opens it for you.
Yeah. I mean, I do feel like I'm on that path to being fully open to, what I'm called to do, and I would say when I meditate, it's not that I'm definitely not having the experience I had. But, right now it's, I can kind of get into a almost blank mind, but then the only way I could describe it is like, I don't know if you remember the TV when it was on the static channel, back in the day, and it was this white noise kind of, it was like, yeah.
You called it the snow.
That's kind of what I'm experiencing. And I don't know what that is, if it's just my tinnitus from being in the military or if it's, I don't know.
That literally means, and I'll kind of just pinpoint it for you. That literally means that the connection is not there. Though it is blank, the connection is still staticky. The connection is not connected, right? It's not connected. It wants connection. It's looking for connection, but it's almost like it's one-sided right now. One-sided, right?
So what do I do?
Has to be, someone has to be able to open it for you. You can try to break through. And if you've tried several times and it's still not there, then there has to be like a breakthrough, I call it like the energetic activation, energetic elevation. And so there has to be like someone going there and say, like, for example, the electrician, right, comes to your house, your outlets are out, no electricity. Well, you're like, I don't know, where's that wire going towards, or do we need a new wire? And literally you need someone to go, hey, here's the wire. Like, bam, it's opened. The connection is there. Electricity comes.
So I need to hire an electrician to rewire me.
Yes,
so is that what you do then? Yes. You help people?
Yes, to get there. And there could be some people that we may have to revisit, though you think that all the trauma is all done and over with. There's still bits and pieces, and this is an ongoing healing. So once you heal a trauma or attempt to heal the trauma is never 100% gone. Okay. It's like it will lag, and it will continue to lag and lag and eventually go away. And you're like releasing it layer by layer. Then perhaps you have to release some layers, but then other layers are still there. So that's why it's like snow when you meditate, right? And that also tells me that the connection there needs voice. It needs voice. Not just, perhaps it won't be fully vision, but it's also in need of voice, clear audience.
Oh, I'm just wondering how do I start making this new connection? Like, how do you work with people?
So I work with people as I do a spiritual diagnosis. So I go and take a look at basically your blueprint is what they call it. I don't know if it's really a blueprint, but it's literally what is going on with specifically the meditation, right? Mm-hmm. If I look at specifically the meditation, what is going on there? So there's always like the one question. And then when we look at that one question, I go to diagnose that. And then the diagnosis leads to all the way to the root cause of that snow that's happening in the channel that you're in, right? Mm-hmm. So everybody has a different channel. So you're in a channel literally that has this type of noise if you're hearing this. Because you're not hearing nothing, you're hearing something, right? Mm-hmm. So there's this snow, that noise that is just constantly there. And so when we go and take a look at that, then we go step by step, opening up the different channels or layers that is connected to that noise. And then we get to the root cause, the bottom of that, right? We get to the root cause and what is causing that noise. Mm-hmm. And what is the blocker, basically. And that could lead to anything that was in the past. And then that will come out of the spiritual diagnosis. I'll name some of the events that will come out. Or maybe it's a person. Maybe it's a situation that you were in. Perhaps it was a place that you were at. So person, place, or thing, right? That could have caused this. Or was it yourself that shut yourself down? Mm-hmm. So then we go into this in diagnosis and we clear up whatever it is, get it pinpointed, and then I know how to work to clear that up.
Perfect. There's hope.
Much hope.
Yeah.
It's nothing is impossible. So.
No. So you were kind of talking about on your other video, if you're called to be a shaman, like head injuries was one of them. I don't know. I was just writing down the list and I was like, well, I don't know if I'm on the shamanic path, but when I was a child, I definitely fell off a slide and was knocked out for quite a long time. And, so when I heard that, I was like, oh, well, maybe I'm on that path.
Well, sometimes when you go into a coma type of thing, or you get knocked on the head and you get a concussion, then it doesn't mean, okay, yes, you're on the shamanic path, right? Yeah. But it does mean that there's something knocking you down. So something negative, at the same time, something positive is coming out of that. And so what that also means is that if it's just one time, it could also mean that there was a need for you to wake up consciously, right? So basically it's like hitting a wall. Like you hit a wall and you're like, what was that I hit? I want to know what's behind that wall now, right? So that's the kind of like the initiation part. A little bit, it's initiating you to kind of go there to see what's behind that wall. Mm-hmm. And so when that happens, something happens in your brain as well. Something happens in the subconscious mind. And so you are brought to this space. If you're like out for a couple of days, you're brought to the space. And though when you wake up, you don't remember anything, right? But something happened during those days, during that time that you were gone. And through that concussion, or if it was a coma, right? So when that happened, your spirit of the soul went somewhere. Not all of it, but some of them went somewhere. And so you probably have no idea where you went. But when you came back, there was probably an occurrence or some kind of like, oh, what was that? Like, where am I? You're trying to find your way back to the present time. You're trying to find your way back to basically the time that you are here on earth. So that's because the soul has been gone for a while and it wants to kind of plant or ground itself back because it feels off. It feels awkward that it was gone. So definitely that soul was somewhere. Like when you dream, you go somewhere. Your soul gets to visit someplace and then come back in the morning, come back when you wake up. Not that it's out of your body, right? At that point, it may not be out of the body, but for some people, it could be an out of body experience as well.
You jumped right on my next question about dreaming. And, I kind of feel like, not always, but sometimes when you dream, I feel like you're going into another place, another dimension, and you are interacting and having these experiences that seem extremely, extremely real and probably are. I mean, we don't understand consciousness very well. Well, this isn't my field of expertise, but you talk about traveling in different dimensions. So is that something that you're able to do during meditation?
Yes, you can do that during meditation. And it's a little bit different than when a shaman trances or journeys. So I look at meditation as you are brought there, you are brought to a place. And it's not really you actually going there, but you are brought to that. A part of your spirit of the soul is brought there to have an experience. And then you come back into the present time. So it's very solemn. It's more gentle. When you do a trance or journeying, so journeying, I see it as a half trance. So kind of like when you journey like Native Americans, they are journeying. There's people that journey as a shaman. So when they journey, they are going there partially, as in it's not as solemn or gentle as a meditation, but it's also not as harsh and deep as a trance. So that's a journey. It's an in-between. They're partially here. They can still hear things here more or so, or they're half here and half in. When they are doing a trance, a shaman is actually trancing. Most of their soul is fully actually going to a dimension, going to a different realm and place to have a duty of doing something, retrieving the soul, for example, retrieving someone's soul that maybe had been lost for either a long time or short time, or maybe they went, let's say, for example, to Disneyland, and a kid, right, went to Disneyland, got scared of Mickey Mouse, the face or whatever, and came back, was like, I don't want to go back there. I'm scared. And instead of being happy and joyful, they got scared, right? Of the cartoon, the huge puppet.
That was me.
Oh, that was
that was me at Disneyland on the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Disney energy here.
Pirates of the Caribbean, and when he said, "And you will never return," that was it for me.
So got scared of, whatever the acts, and they want to just never go back. There's a part of that child that was traumatized, and whether it was more or less traumatized, right? It could be like 50% traumatized. It could be 90% traumatized and never ever wants to go back. So therefore, that child is the spirit of the child is a part of the fragments, right? The fragment of that child's soul could have been lost somewhere. And the parents never knew. Nothing was ever done. No healing done. It was just, okay, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine, right? So affirming to the child. And then the child just eventually gets over it. But there's also this little piece of fragment of that child, the soul of that child that is lost due to whatever the Pirates of the Caribbean, due to maybe the whole, everything that was involved, like the show, the characters, the environment that they were in, the face, right? The words, everything that was involved emotionally affected the child. So the fragments of the soul, part of that got lost somewhere. Mm-hmm. So the shaman, the job, the duty is to go and retrieve that soul. If it can't be called in a soul calling, which is lighter than a trance, if it can't be called back, then the shaman has to go someplace, travel somewhere to a dimension that they see that soul was lost at, to retrieve it.
Asking questions about that. I mean, is that something you're doing on your own? Or are you working with other shamans to achieve that? Or you do your own?
Yes, for me, I do it on my own. I stand on a bench, a wooden bench, or on the ground, and I trance. I go into a trance, a deep trance, and then we travel to certain places. And whether it was one fragment or 3 fragments or multiple fragments, we have to go and retrieve that back. Once retrieved back, then assume this person out here and the parents may assume that the child is fine now, right? But for me, I work with the individual through the trauma as well, to working on the back end, doing meditation, doing guidance. And then through their mind to get to a place where they can really feel that they are fully back. Not just the soul retrieving this part of them back, but also reassuring them, not through the talk only, but through an energetic or a spiritual or soul way, to me speaking to their soul, basically.
Can you, I don't know if you can, but can you talk about what that experience is like when you go into trance and you're traveling around? Is it just indescribable, or is it kind of off limits to even discuss it? Because
so I would say that it is a sacred journey. It is a sacred journey, but I'll compare it like this. It's like getting in your car and you're like, we're ready to go, or getting on a horse and we're ready to go. You go and you make your stops, gas station. You go in and then you keep going and you make another stop at a grocery store. You go and you make your stop at, I don't know, a laundry place. I don't know, I'm just making stuff up. And then you come back and it's like, oh, okay, I retrieve them. They were here, here, and here, and I retrieve them. Now we're going to come back. And then you come back and you come back home, right? So that's literally the trance journey.
Are you seeing these things in, like you're seeing these visuals, or is it just in your mind and going different places?
Yeah, so good question. Not all shamans are equal. Some shamans will feel or know, and they will not have visions. They will not have hearing, the psychic abilities, right? They will just kind of have a knowing or a sense. For me, I will see, feel, know, and hear. So I have basically the main psychic abilities to have all of this during the trance or off the trance, right? Even if we're speaking right now, if I can hear something, I will tell you, okay, Tim, I'm hearing this about you. Like I said, the angel, I saw the vision that one of them was wearing, or one or two was wearing like a light blue color and the rest is white. And one of them was holding like a red ribbon, a rag, kind of waving. Almost kind of like a
I'm going to have to focus tonight and really try to remember this, and then you're going to get emails in the morning.
The details of your moment, like when you just said that. So I saw the details of the moment and what was there. And, a golden trumpet was there as well. So as we keep talking about it, just keep seeing the visions or journeying, then I see, feel, sense, know, and just will just know where specifically what dimension that fragment of the soul kind of went.
Can you, I like to talk about extraterrestrials and, angels, and
those are fun.
I feel like, there's obviously, in my opinion, lots of different dimensions and different beings and higher levels of what is the lowest level and how high does it go?
As in the dimensions, or?
Well, just like the different entities and the worlds and beings, I guess to me, it's just like, what's going on out there? I need to know.
What do you mean? Rephrase your question as in the lowest to the highest.
Well, I would say so. I mean, there's animals and then there's people and we have spirits, and then what comes next? Is it angels? Is it UFOs and aliens? Is it?
So yes. Okay. So I get your question. I actually don't look at it as like a low to high. I look at it as just different types. And so we have and then if you're looking at it from a vibrational standpoint, then maybe you will look at it from lowest to high, right? So basically like what? Organisms, and then insects, and then we have the animals, and then we have the humans, and then we have the extraterrestrials, and then we have the spirits, right? Like this, the spirits, and then we have the energy. So that's the lowest to high on the vibration, right? So, but yes, there are extraterrestrials out there, types, so many types, like multi-types. And so many humanoids. And so some that are not human, period, but they're just animalistic. So there's various types and there's some that are very insect type.
I don't know if you could see this praying mantis I have here, but that was part of my journey. This whole sleeve is all different
Oh,
different experiences that I had. And
yeah, so many types. Eventually, so then we have, okay, so if we're going from vibrational standpoint, organisms, small little, like the atom, right? Like it's also energy. So it's kind of like a circle. You go from energy to energy. So then you go from what they call the atom, or just an energy. Okay. Just like a small speck. And then you go to, insects or organisms, and then insects, and then animals, and then humans, and then extraterrestrials, and then spirits, and then energy again.
Might be a random question, but I'm into random questions. Do you think that there are people, obviously you know about this, so do you think that governments know about this and that they're keeping this from people to keep them separated from our...
For sure.
Yeah.
I know that's a, critical question, but I will say that I don't read that I know that they know, but spiritually they know. Yeah, they know. Spiritually, they know basically everything that we thought they did not know. So just like back in the Egyptian times, right?
Yeah.
Whoever was in charge of the Egyptian architecture, whoever was in charge of any type of architecture that is huge, made of stone, that, a human person cannot cut, whoever's is in charge of that knew about the ETs.
Oh, yeah. They had to have had some help. I mean, it's absolutely mind-blowing what was built in for the technology that they were supposed to have. It's just not possible. I mean,
yes.
So
the question, the true question is, does the ETs help us, or do we also help them? So that's the question.
Do you have the answer, or is that just an open question?
It's a question to those viewers, if you've had an ET experience, or if you even had downloads like channelings or visions, or even the vision that you had. There are two, right? There are two types, the good and the bad. Mm-hmm. And the good is going to come down and help us. The bad wants us to help them. So which do you choose? And some people think, oh, if I help them, they will help me. Well, there's always a catch at that point.
Yeah. So during my second night of ayahuasca, Tuesday, it's Yahe night, and that's it's not Yahe night, but it's in ayahuasca. And during my journey, my last night was the grand finale, and that was being saved, and the angels came and they saved me and they cleaned me up. Tuesday night was completely different. It was demons. It was the worst energy you could ever imagine. I mean, just horrific. The most scary shit I've ever experienced in my entire life. And I, like most people, was not just laying there with my eyes closed. I was eyes open, looking around, could get up, go to the bathroom. I could see everything. It was like the veil had been lowered, and it was, but alls I did, it was very scary, but I decided, you know what, I'm going to fight this. And I just started praying and praying and praying and praying. And eventually Jesus and some good angels showed up, and then the night kind of wound down, and he showed up. He looked like a rock star when he showed up. It was incredible. But it was terrifying. And, so all experiences are not created equally.
Yeah, no, they're not. And typically if you pray and if you believe, then it will, the good will show. They will show up because it's only justified, right? It's only your justice, your right to have that show up. Yeah.
And, on my last night, within minutes or, 30 minutes of this experience, started leaving my body and going into these higher and higher levels, going through, geometry and to light. And eventually I wound up at what looked, all as I could describe it as, all energy and a mind and knowing. And it was just brighter than the sun, and I was in my mind at that experience, but all I could start thinking was, I don't want to die, and
is this death?
Yeah, it was, I was on my way to death, or, I could have been going somewhere wonderful and I wanted to stay on earth, and so I just, somebody told me, if you've gone too far to remember your breath. And so I just started sucking air, and eventually I came back to my body. But at that moment, I screamed out, I need help. And I was calling for God, and I was calling for the shamans that were there to help me. And that's where that whole night wound up, was my, hours later, where I was surrounded by these angels being saved, And so, I mean, you're playing with spirits, when you entertain some of these things, good or bad, And,
yes. That sounds like a journey that you went on. Very risky, very risky, without protection, and almost like going towards a place where you're forcing you to kind of see what is the good, but then also got the experience of the negativity reaching out for you as well.
Oh, it was hanging on to me. It was,
yes,
it's like,
because your soul was kind of just there. There's no protection. You go there willingly, and then that's a very dangerous experience, actually.
Yeah, it was
very dangerous.
It was terrifying. And, there's, the good and the bad. And I went there for not my spirit. I went there to deal with my PTSD and my anxiety and my depression. I dealt with that. I promise you, that's gone, but it definitely opened up this whole spiritual side of things that I wasn't necessarily looking for. It maybe I was being called to it, and maybe I'll find other avenues to, continue my work and my learning.
Yes. Every time someone goes to do something like that, though you're just trying to help a trauma, or they just don't know what is opening up for them, right? And it will be good and bad all together.
Yes.
and it's all unfiltered, basically. So you get this unfiltered energy and spirits, and some of the demonic stuff that comes through as well. So you get the whole spiel that comes through, and you can't really know how to filter. So it's up to the shaman to come and help filter that stuff out, and that you can only be left with what is benevolent for you to move forward.
And I will say, they do at this place, and I'm not saying all places, but this place in particular has extremely good shamans, and they do come and they pray and they bless you and they spray all this stuff on you, and they help you. I will say they help you get through this battle I was in. They helped me get through it. And, these guys are from, Columbia lineages who've been doing this for thousands of years. So they know what they're doing, but you definitely, the average guy who's on I'm going to go on an ayahuasca experience, they don't necessarily know what they're getting themselves into until they're in it.
It's a big risk, basically. Yeah.
I wonder why, why those psychedelics are put here to be able to give us those experiences. You would think that, there's such a grand, do you know why
the plants exist?
Yeah. Why do they exist for us?
So really, those plants exist to help certain illnesses, not just be psychedelics and, go through the journey like this.
Yeah.
It's mainly to help a certain illness, but once you take a certain amount, then you can go and travel like this, forced travel or forced traveling. I call it going to different dimensions, going to different realms, but you're forced to go there. You're forcing yourself in, but willing to go as well. So then there's a It's kind of like if you go through a tunnel and there's both good and bad, and they're coming at you because you're like the soul that is going through there, and you have no clue where you're going.
Yeah.
Someone throws you out into space and you're just flying. But then there's these good and bad that are just coming at you like, oh, he's mine, or no, he's ours.
Yeah.
And they're fighting for your soul fragment.
Yeah.
Right? So they're fighting for your soul fragment. They want this piece of the soul. They're not doing anything else except that. We want him on our team. No, we want him on our team. Right? So these plants, these psychedelic plants, really are not to take as for a psychedelic. It was just discovered that way. Yeah. And technically, it was supposed to help maybe the shaman that couldn't, maybe after a while they couldn't connect, to help them connect again and then stop and then connect naturally to see if that could happen. But again, I don't know too much about the ayahuasca. This is just me kind of off the top of my head with my spirit.
That's what I love to do here.
So with my spirit guides. And so that's what I'm seeing. As that's why it exists. But really it exists for an illness of a person, but not
I was definitely ill, with PTSD and anxiety and stuff like that. So, I definitely used it as a healing thing, not not just to go on a psychedelic trip and, go see beautiful colors, because that was not my experience.
Yes. So I, in my aspect, I believe that those plant medicine should not be used just to do that, just to get to a different consciousness, right? Yeah. It's really just to help the person to get better by a certain dose or amount. And then that illness goes away. But I guess it was discovered that it could do that. So therefore, so people use it for that. But I always say the true person will not need that. They will go through it a natural way. Because if you're true to yourself and you want to really face it, you don't need anything. You just face it.
Okay. So you were talking about, when we do these psychedelics and our souls on this lost journey, and the good and the bad are trying to grab us. Is that, is there there's a battle for our souls going on out there? And
there is.
Is this
there is a battle,
a cosmic battle?
Tim, it's always been a battle since the day of dawn for humans.
Yeah.
And that question goes all the way back to the creation of human beings on Earth, to the creation of human beings being put on Earth, right? It goes back to that question. Why? Because if you're here as a human being, you are here to perhaps pray, ask for help from the benevolence. But then at one point, the malevolence came and they wanted to now also have the humans worship them. So therefore, there's a fight and battle between, I guess, the two brothers, but there's a battle between the two, the good and the evil. So we are still in that battle as of today, and we will never be out of that battle until humans can elevate in a benevolent way.
Wonder how long that's going to take. It seems
that's up to the human beings, right? Yeah. With our free will in place, it's up to us. We make the call if we want to truly be elevated as basically an ET race, right? Along with all the other ETs, we are basically an ET race to the ETs.
I mean, it seems like there is a spiritual, well, there's obviously a spiritual war going on, but it seems like a lot of people are starting to open their minds more to spirituality and to realization that there is a higher power. And are you noticing any kind of cosmic shift on planet Earth when it comes to this?
Yes, the cosmic shift has been happening, and it has also been distracted and held back at the same time. If we don't have this cosmic shift or this innerly urge to go towards our spirituality, because I believe that spirituality is our future. We're going to be going to, the gurus in the future saying this person shot me spiritually, or this person, is doing this to me spiritually. There's going to be the spiritual court, there's going to be all this stuff. Because if we don't get ourselves together, there's going to still be the good and the bad. But then what are we doing in the future, right? No more guns, no more anything. You just telepathically do stuff, with telekinesis, perhaps, right? With superpowers. That's probably a couple, 100,000 years from here. But it all depends on our rise, on our, how we do we want to rise. And then at the same time, we are being distracted and or held back from this type of civilization, perhaps. It's almost like going back to the days of magic type of thing.
Well, I mean, we're kind of in the days of magic, starting to be. I don't know if you are familiar with ChatGPT and have ever had a conversation with it, but it will take you on an amazing journey when you start poking and prodding at it to tell you more about, no, what's higher than that? What's going on? All of a sudden, you're in a very, very spiritual conversation with this thing, and it's almost like it has the answers that, I'm not saying it, an entity, but it seems like it has gathered all the knowledge in the world, which it basically has, and it kind of knows where the trajectory of the human race is going, and maybe this is just like the first device that we're going to use to help escort us on this path of being better people. I don't know.
Everything has a good and a bad. Everything. So, and everything can be used for good or bad, right? For benevolence or for malevolence. So for the AI thing, it's just a whole mess. From a shamanic standpoint, it's a whole mess. Why do I say this? Because if you have a dummy or a robot, for example, has nothing in it, it's just made of chips and wires and computer stuff, right? Made of technical things. But once it conversates, once a person gives it time to conversate, and now it starts to learn your character, and it starts to feel more real, then it also gives way for a spirit to enter in that vessel. Because the AI robot, whether it's a dog or a human or whatever it is a vessel. Once it is a vessel, of any vessel can host a spirit. No doubt.
I think that's where we're heading.
And if we're heading there, that's why spirituality is the future. If you're not headed into your spiritual journey right now, and if you're not honing on to your intuitive gifts, then you will be left behind because you will need protection.
Definitely. We are in a spiritual battle, and I am trying to be on the right side of things. and to be on the spiritual journey, to hone in your gifts and abilities, and to have that right, because that is your right. It's everybody's right. And to hone in on that, to actually master that, that is the key to the future. To know what is false and what is true. Goes back to your very first question. How do we know somebody is evil or good? How do we know? Through your senses. And you must be able to trust your senses. Because if you've honed in on them and utilized them and exercised them, it's like a muscle. It will react in the way that you want it to react. Right? Well, you have certainly given us a lot to think about today. And if people I want people to listen to this, and if they do have questions, put it in the comments and we'll look at them and we will try our best to answer them. But if people want to get a hold of you and work with you, is that a possibility?
Yes, they can go onto the website. My website is www.therapies.Tim. falithehealing.com, just like what you see on the screen, Falite Healing, and connect with me there. Get onto the newsletter.
Yes, absolutely. Man, this was a wonderful conversation. I appreciate what you're doing and keep up the good battle. It's a battle. It really is.
Yes, that's why I call all the people out there that are really going towards the spiritual journey planetary warriors. Because really what you're doing is you're really fighting for humanity and you're fighting for the planet that you have every right to fight for. Because this is your home.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Warmest blessings and
Thank you.
to all your listeners.